Hi, I'm Kaylee, and I write fantasy and science fiction.
And I'm Erin, and I write fantasy fiction and poetry.
And today we are talking about characters and coming up with characters and how we do that. So, Erin, where do you start when making a character?
When making a character, I guess the first thing is, what kind of character are they? Is this the protagonist, side character, main character but not protagonist, I guess. I guess, okay, this is a little bit like me realizing this right in this moment. I think the starting point for me for characters is either what their role is or what their personality is. But I think more in terms of the role probably than I than I had really realized that before. Like whether they have like a certain job or like skill set kind of in the world that they're in. And then I guess if it's like one where that doesn't really matter so much. Like I have a story that like the protagonist is like a high school student, like, okay, her job is the same as everybody else around her. And so then it comes more into like the personality, like what kind of presence does this person have? So yeah, that's probably the starting point, is like the things that are probably like the most obvious about that character. But I guess those are the things that also have the most to do with how they're gonna impact and interact with the world around them. I don't know, kind of, I guess, is a way to boil that down.
Yeah. How do you go from, just as a little follow-up question, how do you go from the role to like the personality?
The personality. Well, you mean like, does one kind of inform the other?
Yeah,
do you come up with one first?
Like, do you pick a person, you're like, okay, this person is a like blacksmith or something, and then you're like, okay, what type of person are they like?
I think they kind of come together a little bit.
Okay.
Like the idea, I think now that I'm thinking back on it, I'm like, oh, I don't remember necessarily the moments of like when I've kind of realized all these things, but I don't know, because the way I think I'm a very visual thinker, and so I usually like see the character, and I'm just kind of, they have a vibe, and they they are a certain way, I guess, like, like something that would inform like what kind of job they have, or what they spend their time doing, I guess. I don't know.
No, that makes sense. Like if you see them and they're like, oh, this person's like shy, or like they have this. No, I know what you mean by like the vibe of the, like how they feel.
Yeah. And sometimes that gets a little bit tailored. Like if I've got one character that's already a certain way, I'm like, well, they can't be the exact same person. But that, I don't think that happens too often. And I guess that's not unrealistic either. But yeah, but sometimes they get tweaked a little bit.
Yeah,
but
that makes sense.
Yeah. What about you? Where do you start with a character?
I think I'll start differently going forward than I started with this book. Because I think with this book, I told my editor, I was like, she was like, wow, your plot was really good. Some of your characters, like, some of this stuff doesn't make sense with some of the character relationships or whatever. And I was like, oh, I think that makes sense, because I plotted a bunch, but I kind of like pantsed the characters. So like I kind of do plot and world building first, and then I come up with characters. And I think I kind of do what you do a little bit with, like, as far as like the vibe go. Like I'm like, oh, this character has like, they feel this way. Like the one of my POV characters, Mark, is like the priest, and I was like, oh, he's a rule follower. He's got this vibe of like, oh, the kind of a little more stoic or whatever. So yeah, I think that happens. That's like how I do the main characters, or the important ones. A lot of my side characters pop up in the writing sometimes, not always. Sometimes they're like, okay, I'm like, oh, I need like a bully character, and I'll come up with that. But sometimes I'm like there's these two characters that actually got cut from my book, but there are these two, I just started like describing them, and there were these two brothers who were thieves, and they both had red hair, and one was, they were both like really tall and thin, but one was like very like whiny and annoying and talked a lot, and the other one would just like, all he did was nod, and he didn't say anything. And so it was just like a fun like dynamic, and like they like came to me, like you said, like the visual of them, and I really enjoyed them just because they were like fun. I don't know anything about their personalities or anything, but I think I'm going to put them in a novella. But yeah, sometimes I come up with side characters like that where I'll just start describing a person, and then I let the description inform the way they're going to interact, even if they're only in that one scene.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. You know, okay, this is a little tangent. But you know, like, I love the way Charles Dickens describes people.
Oh, okay.
I think his descriptions of people are just like really fun. Like, they're kind of mean, but you don't have to be mean about, but like, he's just like really good at being like, just kind of getting across like that presence, you know, like you said, of like, oh, this character is like, oh, he's the lord of this person, and he's like, you know, like, or like I feel like he would describe someone as like, oh, this, you know, he's this large nobleman, and like the buttons are struggling to contain like his belly as much as his like mouth is struggling to contain his laughter, or something like that, something better than that. But like, he has like these like, and that wasn't very Dickensian,
Roast
but
him.
yeah, he has like these really fun ways of like having people's physical appearances connect to how they are. That I just think is really fun. Sometimes it's a pause, and I think he tends to roast everyone a little bit, but I'm not like quite like that, but I like how the description tells you a bit about the person.
Yeah.
Which is not like, that's not necessarily real life, obviously, but I'm not telling you to judge people based on how they look, but I'm saying it's fun to use how characters look to portray a certain type of personality, or like their clothes or their hair or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not telling you to judge people based on how they looked, but it's fun to judge people. No, I know.
Yeah, it's okay.
It is, because it's in fiction, and I mean, like, I don't know.
And there are choices people make. Like, if someone's like I've been watching Andor, and I watched a YouTube video about Andor, and in the YouTube video, this guy was like, I don't know, I guess I'll find it and link it in the description, but he was like, oh, you can tell this guy like takes everything super seriously because they have a lot, like, he's taken the time to like get his uniform tailored when like have like standard issue like guard uniforms, and his is tailored, and that like tells you something about that this guy is a little bit of a stick in the mud. Yeah. Anyway, that's my little tangent.
So what are some challenges you experience when creating characters?
I think the two things I struggle with the most when making characters are making them not bland and making them consistent. Okay. Those are the things I think about the most, because I'm like, I guess like in real life there are boring people, but I feel like not really. Like, if you really knew everyone, I feel like nobody would be boring if you were like in their head and you really knew them. Maybe that's not true. I don't know. There's only one way to find out, which is I am not capable of doing, because I can't get in everyone's head. So yeah, so I feel like they don't all need to be like super cool guy, whatever, but I do feel like they should all have something a little bit unique about them that is interesting. And then with making them consistent, I want the characters to be like, when they make a decision and they make another decision, like, it should make sense that the same person made both of those decisions. Even if one is to reverse the other one, like, the reader should be able to see how they got there. So that's I think that's really hard. I'm not sure if I've hit that where they all feel super consistent, but I think that's like, and I feel like you can see people fall into that when you read books. Like, sometimes, or in a movie, you're like, why are they, you're like, this doesn't seem at all like what this person, what I thought they were gonna do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those are my two biggest challenges.
That makes sense.
How about you? What are your challenges with making characters?
So I definitely agree with the consistency thing. That is super difficult, especially because sometimes you want to make the plot go a certain way. So you're going to have this character do this thing, but then it's like, once you've kind of started writing that character, it's just like, does it actually seem like something they would do? So I also struggle with that a lot. Which I think it's one of those things, I guess, like, kind of zooming back out, like general struggles, is kind of similar to like with world building. I get really overwhelmed by not knowing what I don't know. And so with a character, it's like it's like meeting a whole new person. And I'm just kind of like, you know, even ourselves, like, you can be one way one day, and like people aren't really like 100% consistent, but
That's
like
true. Yeah.
typically tend to be pretty consistent. Like you can have certain expectations from a person, and they meet them without thinking. So it's just kind of like trying to make sure like that's represented, but then also trying to let them be complex and have depth, and not just be an archetype or one personality trait, or just here to like do certain things. I think that's the thing that I struggle with a lot, is just like making sure that they all have that they all have depth and are believable, and not just like, I don't know, that they're not just like boiled down to like one kind of trait or function.
Yeah, like they're not like, this is the smart one.
Right.
And like, that's it.
Yeah. Which one thing that is a little bit helpful, but also kind of you have to be careful with, because it can kind of trap you in that. Like one thing I kind of use when I'm first starting out with a character is like considering what their personality type would be if they were to use one of the ones that we kind of use. So like if you MBTI or like the Enneagram or whatever, I've kind of like looked at characters and been like, okay, so what motivates them that goes with this? What do people with this type tend to be like? Like that's a helpful framework. But as you can do with real people, sometimes you start saying, like, you start stereotyping people and kind of put them in a box. So it's like, there's pitfalls with that, but it is kind of helpful, at least for being able to see like what personality traits are compatible in a way that we see on a regular basis. I guess that kind of just helps expand it beyond whatever the core thing that you first think of when you think of that character is, I guess.
Yeah.
That kind of felt like a woo.
No, I think it makes a lot of sense, because I've looked at some of those too, and I feel like it's helpful to, even just helpful with coming up with like, oh, I didn't think about that as a trait that someone could have.
Yes,
you know, or like, oh yeah, I forgot that someone could be, or like, maybe it doesn't first occur to you that someone could be motivated by X.
Yeah, and a lot of that also is like, you can look at a character and them have like a trait, but then you also have to make sure that like all the characters aren't just problem solving the way that you would problem solve.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you can be like, oh, well, my personality isn't like this, but this is how they approach this problem. And it's like, okay, but somebody who has a tendency toward like being super logical is probably not going to like, I don't know, like be super feely and emotional, like as they're making, like in the same way that, an emotional author might, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. That is tough to be like, okay, well, how would they think of that?
Yeah,
it requires a lot of empathy. So when you create a character, do you create the character for the plot, or like for the character, like for the love of the character?
This is another one where it kind of depends on which kind of character they are. So if it's a main character, usually it's like, I'm not necessarily like at the grocery store picking out different things this character is going to be. I'm like, no, this is the story. This is the person that's kind of spearheading that story. And most of the like main but not protagonist characters kind of fall into that same thing, where it's kind of like, oh no, this is who this person is. Now, sometimes though, you need a baker, you need some person in the village, you need a villain's lackey kind of person. And sometimes it is really easy to just give that person a name and appearance and a job and move on, and that's really all you know about them. And so that does tend to be more to serve the plot. I will also say the book that I'm working on now, it's kind of like, there's a protagonist, and there are 3 more like main characters, but then the most of the story, they're in a party of, I think it's like 6 people. And some of those people, some of their attributes or their roles kind of came from, we have to serve the plot. So like, I tried to use kind of like a D&D like party balance kind of structure to be like, what kind of things do you need to be able to do for y'all to be able to like navigate through the story in a way that's effective and interesting and not like too redundant. So it's like, sometimes the the plot's important and they're just at the behest of the needs of the story, and I'm a little bit like, is that bad? I don't know. But for the most part, when it comes to like their personalities and character, it is just kind of like, oh well, who is this person? So it might be that they have their personality. I'm just gonna force them to do a job they may not like, and then we'll figure out why they had that job, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense.
That does make sense. Yeah. I think I start more with the I think they start off for me very much like for the plot, like the three the three primary characters of these two brothers, and then like one of the brothers' uncle. Like at first, the younger brother, I was like, oh, he's the main character, and then I developed his personality after that. And then the older brother, I was like, he is a protective older brother, and then I like figured out who he was really kind of after that.
Yeah.
And then with the uncle, I started with like, oh, he's the mentor, and I was like, oh well, but who is he really? And I think as I write it really is like, I think you mentioned earlier, like getting to know a whole person. Like as you write them, I feel like it's like, yeah, you really are like, oh, like I'm learning all these things about you. Which is kind of weird to say, but. And then even with the other ones, like I have, like my two brothers, they have a mom. And at first she was just like mom character. She was just like, I am mom. And she still just is a little bit like I am mom, but I tried to give her a little bit more of a personality, just because I was like, I don't want the mom to be just the mom. I was like, she's a whole person. So I was trying to, I don't know, and I'm not a mom, but I see it's such a thing in media for like the parents should just be a parent, and so I'm like, okay, let me give her a little bit more of a personality. But yeah, and I definitely have like kind of a bully character. It's just like the bully. So yeah, I think I am kind of similar to you in this, where it's like try not to, but sometimes you just need somebody to be like guard number 7, or like they are the whatever in this situation.
Right.
Yeah.
So kind of on the note of like whether the characters for the plot or like as like being a person, like I think the idea of thinking of like fictional characters as like whole people, where it's kind of like that iceberg thing where it's like you only see this little bit of them in the story, but then they've got more. I mean, people usually use that for world building, but I mean it applies to characters and people.
Yeah.
But I think like it's one of those things that maybe is a little bit like me kind of being in my head, but I feel like it's a new realization a little bit to be like, oh no, you have to treat this like a real person, kind of like with all this depth. And one thing that I thought was really interesting that I read that kind of like helped me understand that more is in Every Moment Holy. So what that is, it's just a book of like liturgies for kind of like, I don't know, outside of church context kind of experiences. And they have one for fiction writers. And this one stanza says like, let me love this world into being, and let me love each of the characters I create, even those who choose to harm, who choose their own pride, their own strength, their own glory above what is right and good and true. Let me love even those who turn from righteousness, who eschew grace. And so it's like thinking about like your story's gonna have the good guys and the bad guys. And it's like, as we know from like real people in the real world, like people are not just their actions, like there's reasons for them to. So it's just like kind of remembering that you can have a villain in the story and they can like, be a really good, like easy to want them to like have a downfall villain, but you still kind of have to like give them like personhood and some dignity a little bit, and not just be like, well, you are boiled down to this. It's like, I mean, yeah, there's some things that it's like, people, it's very rare that they're going to choose to come back from that, but like you still have to kind of just consider that and think about it being like a real person with depth and like motivations for doing things, rather than just kind of like a little pawn in a fake little story. It's like, well, I think a lot of the point of fiction, like our lives are stories, they are narratives. And so I think one of the main arguments for people being like, well, why is it good to still read literature and fiction? It's like, because it helps you relate to other people. It helps you live your life better. So it's just kind of like, if you're not taking that care with the characters, then that kind of takes a little bit of, the potential out of the story to be something that could actually like help somebody empathize with other people and kind of move through the world in a more considerate way, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I really like that. That's really good.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Yeah, and I feel like it helps you empathize with other people, and it also helps you, I don't know, or at least like for me, like when I see a character like do something wrong, or like, you know, depending on what it is, but like, you know, you see characters and you can like understand how they got to be where they are and who they are. It helps. I think it's a little humbling too. So I think it's like you said, it's like helps you be more empathetic with people you know, and also maybe be a little bit more humble about your own sense of your self-righteousness, where you're like, oh, well, maybe, you know, like there's this I think it's in The Hound of the Baskervilles, like Watson is like, wow, that bad guy, I think it's Moriarty, it might be somebody else, I don't remember, I read it a really long time ago, but anyway, Watson's like, wow, that guy sure is a terrible human being, isn't he, Sherlock? And Sherlock's like, no, Watson, there but for the grace of God goes Sherlock Holmes, basically saying like, I would be that person, I would be the criminal if not for the grace of God. And so I like that. Yeah, I like how you brought that up, and I like that liturgy where it's talking about the. Yeah, that was good. I've not heard that before.
Yeah,
I like
read the whole thing. It's got some other good things, but that's the character specific part. But yeah,
nice.
Yeah. So what is an example of a time where you made a mistake with a character and you kind of like maybe wrote them one way and kind of tried to change it for whatever reason? So like the mistake and then why that was a mistake, I guess.
Yeah, I think my first version of my story, my main character, who's the younger brother, Elias, it was kind of like how we were talking about like roles. Like his role was to be peasant farm boy protagonist, and I didn't really have a super strong idea for him beyond that. Saying that, I now remember in the very first version of the draft, he's a wind caller and he controls the wind, and he was going to originally be like a bard and have a guitar. And so he was going to be a guitar, like, and his personality was kind of built around that, and I got rid of that because I didn't like it. It's good that I got rid of it, but then when I got rid of it, I kind of just like hollowed him out and left him with nothing, I feel like. And then you know, introducing the secondary character to kind of be a foil for him helped me to kind of define how he is as an individual person with a personality, instead of just relying on the fact that he had a guitar. So yeah, I think that was one where it was like, okay, I knew this character direction was wrong, and then when I got rid of the bad stuff, I just had it blank slate. But I don't think he's blank anymore. I've fleshed him out. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
I had forgotten about that. What's a mistake you've made with a character?
Also, the first draft and protagonist.
Dude, protagonists are hard.
They are.
Because there's so much writing on them.
There really is. So my protagonist has a very traumatic backstory. And she experiences a lot of flashbacks kind of early in the story. We'll see if that stays in there. I don't know how to write flashbacks very well, so that may not stay. But in the first iteration of the story, she had a lot of those. And what I feel like I had really reduced her down to being kind of like just super paranoid, and like I was trying to like show that as being like something that is actually useful. Like she's very careful and she knows how to like give herself assurance as far as like her like physical safety like really well. And you know, that's kind of reflects like the way that she thinks about things, and it's a like good set of skills to have. But what it had turned into was just kind of that like she also kind of felt like a shell a little bit, like there wasn't really like anything else kind of going on except her just being like afraid. And I was just kind of like, but that doesn't, I mean, I don't know, it didn't really, thinking about other qualities, like when I had first kind of imagined the character, I was like, oh, she's kind of lost all of this, like she doesn't think about anything else. That doesn't seem really believable. She has these things that are still kind of like haunting her and like, you know, making it more difficult to live freely, but she still is able to like, you know, I don't know, do something other than like think about only the things that have like happened to her in the past, I guess.
Well, thank you for watching. If you're a writer, let us know how you approach making a character. And if you're not a writer, but you like characters, just tell us some of your favorite ones, just because that might be fun. All right. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.